welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Mary, and today's video is going to be a book adaptation review of the new Tom Hanks movie, A Man Called Otto. A Man Called Otto was actually, it's based on a book called A Man Called Ove, which is a Swedish book, translated to English, I think in the early 2010s. I read the book. I finished it the day before I went and saw the movie. I saw the movie on Sunday. I'm filming this on Tuesday. So it's all very, very fresh in my mind. And this portion of the video is going to be spoiler-free. I'm just going to be letting you know pretty much how I felt about the book and the movie and how I felt the movie did at adapting the book. So this is mostly for people who are interested in reading or watching, and also people who have read the book and want to know how accurate the adaptation is. So A Man Called Ove, or A Man Called Otto. I'm going to call it A Man Called Ove when I'm talking about the book, just because that's going to be easier for me, but the movie is called Man Called Otto. Man Called Ove is about a man whose name is Ove, and he is an older gentleman. I think in the book he's 59, but Tom Hanks is like, what, 70? So he's somewhere in the like older realm of his life, and it's sort of about him coming to terms with the way his life is. His life is sort of like winding up, and it's about how he is dealing with that and his fears of becoming older and obsolete. It also goes a lot into his background and his backstory. So you get pieces of his backstory the whole time that the book is going along. Every couple of chapters, it goes back and forth between when he was a teenager and things that happened to him, and when he was in his early 20s and how he got into the career that he had and how he moved into the neighborhood, because a big central theme in this book is his neighborhood is changing. So he is curmudgeonly, he doesn't really like his neighbors, he thinks everyone is an idiot, basically like classic okay boomer stuff. That's Ove/Otto. That's his whole persona. And at the beginning of the book, a lady and her husband and their two daughters move in across the street. She is pregnant, and she's also from another country than where they live. So I think in the book, she's Pakistani, maybe? Or Afghan. I can't really remember. I think she speaks Farsi. In the movie, she's actually from somewhere in Latin America. They talk about where they're from. I think the husband is Mexican and the wife is Mexican by way of El Salvador, but her dad is Salvadorian, I think. I don't really recall, but essentially the premise is he doesn't like them initially because they're foreigners, and then him having to interact with them, and then specifically the wife sort of not taking his unfriendliness as an answer and getting to the root of his soul. And if you heard that description and you think there's no way that you would like Otto/Ove as a character, I just think that's what I thought going into it. I heard everyone describe this book as like a curmudgeonly old man that you'll like love in spite of yourself, and I thought there's no way that's true, but it actually is true. So it worked for me. You'll have to let me know in the comments down below if you have read this book or watched the film and it did not work for you. But without further ado, I am gonna hop into spoilers now, and primarily what I'm gonna be doing with this is comparing the book and the movie. I mean, they're the same story, but I'm gonna be letting you know, spoiler-wise, what is different in the film than what happened in the book. And so for that reason, I'm spoiling both of them and all the differences. So if you don't want that, don't watch. Essentially, the setup for the book and the movie are kind of the same thing. They both are actually beginning with a customer service interaction, which I thought was very, very funny. So in the book, Ove is going to a like Best Buy type store to purchase an iPad and like arguing with the salesperson about it, which is just giving you a very good insight into his personality. In the movie, he is at a hardware store purchasing rope. He wants to buy 5 feet of rope, but it's charged by the yard, which is 3 feet. So they charge him for 6 feet of rope, even though he only wants 5 feet of rope, and he's trying to get them to like take a certain percentage off. And it's just showing how he is like very out of touch with the way that customer service and like industries like stores work, which I thought was, you know, humorous, and it adds like the element. So it keeps the like heart of the interaction the same, but without like, the iPad is sort of a full circle moment for the book, and the rope sort of leads into the exact, like the next scene. Something I didn't say during the spoiler-free section, because I feel like it was a spoiler for the book, it was not a spoiler for the film. Ove is trying to commit suicide. He wants to unalive himself, he wants to kill himself because he wants to be reunited with his wife. So in the book, we learn these things little by little, right? I'm assuming you've read the book or you wouldn't be here, or you don't care to read the book and that's why you're here. But in the book, because that's released so slowly, I felt, at least reading the book, like I didn't realize that he was trying to commit suicide until after the rope, like after he like hung himself on the rope, if you know what I mean. In the film, it's a lot more obvious what he's doing. He's drilling a hole into the ceiling, he's hanging a hook there, he's putting a noose on the hook. You can see all of this happening. So it happens in different scenes, but you know the whole time what's going on, if that makes sense. But in the book, I didn't feel like it was that way. So I thought that was one distinct difference. The other differences that I'm just going to go over really quickly, obviously the name of him is different. Ove, I guess, is a Swedish name, and they changed it to Otto, which I think is also, at least, like, that region of the world is where that name comes from, I believe. He has a wife named Sonia. Sonia is kept the same, and the neighbors are changed, like I mentioned, from a Middle Eastern family to a, like, Latin American family. Because, this is my understanding, I assume in Sweden, people moving to Sweden from the Middle East is a more common thing than people, like, the comparative thing is there's a lot of people moving from Latin America to the United States, and people in the United States, particularly older, more conservative people, have a lot of problems with that. So I think that's where the comparison was being drawn. Also, there's a character who, in the book, it's like a tangential character who's friends with someone that Otto, or I keep calling him Otto, is friends with someone that Ove meets, who is gay, and his dad kicks him out, and so that person comes and lives with Ove. I will get to this eventually, but in the movie, they cut the, like, side character. So it's just a boy in Uve's neighborhood who, it's the one who has the bike, and he gets really mad at that person. His name's Malcolm. Ove gets really mad at Malcolm for having a bike out in the middle of nowhere, and he tries to put it up. In the book, he tries to lock it in a shed, and Malcolm gets mad at him and says the bike is because he's like fixing it for his girlfriend, and he's saving up for a car. He doesn't have enough money for a car yet. In the movie, they cut the girlfriend part of it, so there's no, like, Malcolm is not fixing the bike for his girlfriend. It's not his girlfriend's bike. It's his bike. And he ends up getting kicked out of his house because he's trans. So that's something else that's, like, different. There were some characters that were cut, primarily those. Also, the other, like, big, I guess, differences or things that were cut from the book that I don't really feel like impacted the movie at all. The book has a whole scene about Uve's past and his relationship with his dad, how his dad built train tracks, and Ove actually went and worked for his dad after his dad passed away, or worked in his dad's place. There's a lot of, like, him getting his honor and his moral compass from his dad. That's more implied in the film than it is in the books. There's also not a whole lot of emphasis on, like, right is right, wrong is wrong. Him having this very set moral compass, this is how he does things. It's still sort of implied that that's the way that it is based on how he acts and reacts to things. But, and, like, his rule following, like, he's still the same rule follower of, like, don't drive your car through this neighborhood, except for in the movie. You are allowed to drive down that street, but only if you have a permit to park on that street. So it's not for, like, public use. It's just for residents of the, like, complex of essentially, like, townhomes is what they are. Uve's dad is not in the film. Also, Sonia's dad is not in the film. I will say there's a scene where they, like, mention Sonia's dad, and Uve's having, like, flashbacks to his past, and they show a man that I assume is supposed to be Sonia's dad, so I wonder if they, like, filmed a scene with Sonia's dad meeting Ove or something, and then decided not to use it. That would be my assumption since they kept that scene in, but I don't know that for a fact. They also cut out the whole house fire thing. So in the book, Uve's childhood home burns down after his dad has passed away, and also after Ove has, like, fixed this whole house up. And that is different. That's not shown in the movie at all. The movie picks up with past Ove, basically at him meeting Sonia, which I honestly liked. I feel like it made a very clean narrative because his whole thing in the movie, it, like, cuts it down from his whole life to his relationship with Sonia, how that sort of, like, progressed, all of the things that happened within that relationship, which I guess I'm, like, being vague right now, and I don't have to be because this is a spoiler-y section, but, like, them getting married, them moving in together in this neighborhood, them being pregnant, her having an accident and losing the baby, and they kept it as a bus accident, but obviously instead of Spain, this whole movie is set in upstate New York, so it was them going to Niagara Falls, which is in New York and Canada. I also really liked the upstate New York setting. I was wondering how they were going to do that. I was sort of thinking they would go for, like, a Minnesota route, because I think Sweden, it snows a lot, and Minnesota is, like, the place in the U.S. that I think of when I think of snow, or, like, Michigan, like, northern Michigan, I don't know. So I was interested to see where they were going to set it. They did set it, I think, in Duquesne, New York. Let me know if that's not New York, by the way. My assumption was that it was, but also I think they did New York probably because of the trains. So in the book, Sonia meets Ove on a train, and Ove continues to ride the wrong train line with her because he really likes her, and he told her that he was in the military, but he actually has a condition, a heart condition, so he can't get in the military. That is all the same in the movie, but Ove doesn't work on the train. He's coming back from his army physical. So in the movie, it's not like a dead lie, like a straight lie. She misinterprets what he says. When he says, oh, I'm coming back from my army physical, he already knows he's not in the army. She interprets that as, oh my God, you're going to Vietnam, and asks when he's being shipped out, and he's like, well, no time soon. And so that's how their relationship sort of starts and progresses from there, which I thought was really sweet. I really was like very satisfied with the way they were able to transfer everything to make it like American, because I think they could have, like, there's a Swedish movie, I've not watched it, of this book. There's like a Swedish adaptation as well. I think it would have been interesting, and they could have kept it in Sweden, but I think there are certain things, because people, like the average moviegoer, doesn't want to have to do a lot of research. And this is like an American problem for sure, but it's just the way that it is right now. A lot of like the average American moviegoer doesn't want to have to do a lot of research to understand a plot. And I thought that this movie was a really good example of a way to universalize, or Americanize is a better word, Americanize a plot to make it understandable for an American audience. Because Lord knows, American audiences, we are not going to do any research. We're not going to look into what a councilman is. We're not going to look into any of that in Sweden's laws. So there's that. The other big thing that I knew they were going to have to change for the movie, and I was really curious to see how they were going to do it, was what I just mentioned with like the councilman. So in Sweden, I don't know that much about this. I know this from reading this book. I say that all the time in my videos, but I just want to make it very clear that I'm not claiming to be an expert on anyone else's culture, or even my culture. I don't know shit about a lot of things. But my understanding is that in Sweden, even without like a person's consent, if they get to a certain age and the government feels like they can't take care of themselves anymore, they can be put into a home. That is what this book sort of implied to me, with the neighbors who Ove and his wife were like friends with, and then Ove had a big falling out with that guy. My impression in Sweden, because he was at a certain age and a certain disability level, and his wife was also getting older, the government was just going to step in and remove him from her home. And there's a lot of jokes in the book about like the bureaucracy of that, and how that's probably not going to happen for several years. And Ove is like not concerned about it, because he's like, you've got years to appeal that. It will not happen right away. But the thing that I thought was interesting, I was wondering how they were going to do that, because the United States does not have that. We don't have centralized healthcare. We don't have, like, older people have Medicare, but it's not like the same thing exactly. But I'm just saying, we don't have the same like system, healthcare system, or like bureaucracy system that is had in Sweden. So I don't know exactly how theirs works. That was my understanding of it. That was a really long explanation for me trying not to get in trouble. But in this one, what they actually did, which I thought was very like clever, is they had a property development group trying to purchase the homes of people who live in Uve's neighborhood so that they can build high rises and condos on that land. And most of the people in that area rent. That's like a comment that Ove makes at the beginning, or Otto, I guess, since I'm talking about the movie now. It's a comment that Otto makes when that Hispanic couple moves in across the street from him. Instead of talking about, he also doesn't even mention them being foreigners, and I don't know if that was cut from the script. I don't know if that was just edited out, or if they just wanted to leave in the implications of that and not fully have him say it like Ove does in the book. I don't know, but I would be curious to find out what you think about that. If you have a theory, let me know down below. So Otto, when his neighbors move in across the street and he talks to them, they say that they're renting, and he's like, of course you are, because nobody can buy anything. And then he's like talking to his wife's memory, I guess, and he's like, I know you would say that a lot of people can't afford it, but I just think people don't want to commit to things. Whatever, his curmudgeonly answer. So I thought that was like interesting that they had them be renters, and also had like this looming implication that this development group, I thought it was really interesting that like they made that the like central conflict. And so what's happening, it's not, Anita is the girl's name, is it Frank? I don't remember his name. And now I feel like that might not even be right, but I think her name is Anita. The neighbors and like Otto and his wife's former friends, I think what is happening with them is the property development group wants to buy their house. They're refusing to sell, and they have a son who now lives abroad that they are estranged from. And the son has somehow weaseled his way into getting power of attorney from Anita, which basically means that you have the legal right to sign over documents. And he got that from Anita, and then contacted, and then Merica and Di somehow had like the older residents in this neighborhood's health information that they weren't supposed to have. They don't really go into how this happens, by the way, but that's like the implication. And that's how they were like gonna convince them all to move out of their homes so that they could buy up the properties and develop them into condos or apartments or something like that. So I did think that was really interesting because there's still like, you know, a big brother force to like fight, and it keeps the integrity of the story without having to keep all the details. So I was really, really satisfied with the way that that went. I'm trying to think of other big changes, and I'm not really thinking of anything super huge. I mean, obviously, in the book, Ove is so obsessed with the fact that he drives a Saab, and his neighbor, the reason that they like originally don't see eye to eye is because the guy drives a Volvo, and then I think he gets a Volkswagen. I don't remember what car he ends up getting. That is like the cutting off point. But in the movie with Tom Hanks, he drives a Chevy and the neighbor drives a Ford. And so that's their little rivalry. And then I think the neighbor gets a Toyota, and that's when he's like, I can't even, we're not even friends. Like, I can't deal with this. Because they like, it's kind of a joke, but the movie, they don't really explain why having that car is so important to him. But if you read the book, then you know why the Saab is important to him, because his dad showed him how to use the Saab, and his dad was a Saab man, and he just like identifies that with being a good person now. So I loved the movie. I thought it was very cute. The movie made me a lot more emotional than the book did. I think part of it was that I knew where it was going the whole time, and so anything that would happen made me like tear up and want to cry. My partner watched it with me, and he also cried, so there's that. But yeah, if you've seen this movie, you'll have to let me know in the comments down below how you felt about it as a movie, and then also I want to hear how other people felt about it as an adaptation, because I thought it did a really, really great job adapting the original work. It kept the tonal quality, like there was lots of humorous moments, but it's obviously overall very like sad and deep. I think Matt also called it like grown man trauma porn or something. Like, people say A Little Life is trauma porn because it's just like bad thing after bad thing after bad thing happening. I don't think that's what it is, but I think it's just because like there were so many emotional blows for him. I don't know, Matt was really like disturbed by parts of it. So you'll also have to let me know if you felt like it was kind of disturbing. I absolutely loved this book. I'm so glad I read it. I wasn't going to, because I felt like the hype was sort of over, and then I found out that this movie was coming out, and I got a hold in for my library right away, and I was like, you know what? I'll read it. We'll see. And I went and saw the movie, and I'm so glad that I did. I love going to the movies. So again, I had a really great time watching this one and reading this one. I thought Tom Hanks did a really spectacular job. I also thought it was hilarious, the cameos that his children had, because I can't remember the son that was in the movie's name, so sorry. But he played, like, Tom Hanks' son played young Tom Hanks, and then Tom Hanks' other son, Chet, his song is what was being blasted by the, like, developer guy every time he drove through. Yeah, I thought that it was adapted really well for like American audiences, and just to like fit in America, it made a lot of sense, and I really liked it. And even to fit like 10, 15 years later with the types of things that were considered with like the LGBTQ community, I guess, because the character that was like, oh, a friend of mine is gay, went to like, I am trans, and I don't know, I liked the way that all sort of wrapped up. I thought it was done really well. Again, let me know how you felt about A Man Called Otto / A Man Called Ove down in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you liked it. Subscribe if you want to see more content like this from me. I am planning on doing a similar adaptation review of Knock at the Cabin, which is based off of A Cabin at the End of the World by Paul Tremblay. I'm gonna reread the book, I think, and then watch the film just to see how the adaptation goes. I'm always curious when they change the title, but you'll have to let me know if you are excited or interested in seeing that. And if you do want to see that, go ahead and subscribe so you can see when I post that video. It'll be sometime next month, I think is when it comes out. But that's it for me today, and I will see you in another video very soon.